What we need to do, though, is we need to parent in ways that don't reinforce the anxiety. In other words, it doesn't reinforce the pretend fear.
Hey family, Dan here. Hope you are all well. It's time for another edition of Table Talk, and we are very excited to have Graham Irvine here from Kingsway Christian College.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
It is fantastic to have you. So Graham,
Thank you so much.
what are you bringing to the table today?
So I thought that we would chat a little bit about anxiety. It's one of those really big issues across society, but certainly particularly in the space of children and teens. So yeah, let's chat a little bit about that. Big topic, so we obviously won't cover everything by any means, but at least we can dip into it.
We can try. So let's start. First off, what is fear? And can fear actually be helpful?
Okay, so there are two things here. I think there's a difference between fear and anxiety. Okay, so fear is something that is hardwired into all sentient beings. Let me put it that way. So including human beings. All right. Simplest way probably to say the difference between the two is let me give you an example. So you're driving along in the car, you're heading off to work. Right, as you drive along, you think, did I leave the iron on at home?
Classic. Right? I just don't iron things.
Yeah, okay.
That's
right.
the
Fair
safe
enough.
way to do
Right,
it.
yep, fair enough.
But yes, I know the feeling.
Right.
I know the feeling.
Right, and of course, the more you think about it, the more you concentrate on, did I leave the iron on? And while you're driving on the other side of the road, heading back towards where you've just come from, you see a fire engine with its sirens going. All right? And so that, of course, adds to the, oh my goodness,
my house.
What if my house. Now, is anything really happening?
No.
No.
It's all in your head.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
Right? But while you're dwelling on the did I, the car in front of you has stopped because the car in front of him has stopped and in front of her has stopped, which leaves you a little bit of room to stop. And suddenly you go, oh my goodness, and you hit the skids and you stop.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's the difference between anxiety and fear.
Okay.
So what you're feeling about leaving the iron on is anxiety.
Gotcha.
What you just felt about hitting the car in front of you, that was fear.
Right.
Fear is about the feelings of a clear and present danger.
Yes, okay.
Anxiety is about maybe. Oh, and that's okay. Because sometimes the maybe does turn into a danger.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
But what we're seeing in our kids and with people in general is that anxiety of what if I left the iron on has become quite overwhelming for some people. And we can actually parent in ways that help our children not be overcome by what if this happens.
Yep. Gotcha. Okay, cool. So the difference between fear and anxiety, it's actually a really good example with the car. So in your head and then physical.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct.
Okay, cool. So can we talk about a couple of different pathways?
Yeah.
So I've heard you talk about different ways before. So there's the top down or the cortical, big word there, guys.
Well done.
Cortical pathway. Can you explain that to me, please?
Yeah. So in our brain, the front part of our brain is the prefrontal cortex.
Gotcha. Yep.
That part of our brain is the part of the brain that does our decision making. It processes information. It is the part of the brain for blokes that it takes us till 25 to actually mature in.
Or longer.
Or longer even, yes, right? Yep. So it's involved in risk-taking. The idea of cortical anxiety is it's anxiety that we're processing with certain thoughts and ideas.
Gotcha.
Okay, so how can I give you an example. So as a teenager, I walk into the classroom and in my head, my brain goes, they're probably all talking about you and they probably don't like you.
Yeah.
And so suddenly I'm feeling anxious. Now, is there any evidence of that? No, because that's why it's anxiety,
Gotcha. Yeah.
right? But our cortical pathway has those sort of ideas that come into our mind. Right. So we do some thinking about things. We catastrophize. This little bit has happened, but it's going to be huge.
Of course.
Right? Because that's happened, then everything's going to... No one likes me. Hang on, no one?
Yeah.
So
it's extremism.
Correct, yes. My grandson would say, everybody does this. And I go, everybody? Yeah, everybody, Poppy. Everybody? Oh, okay, not everybody.
Not everybody, yeah.
Right? So there are certain aspects about that top-down pathway, the cortical pathway, but it's all really involved in how we think.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And then the other one, now this is, I guess, I'm going to assume,
Yep.
but I've been wrong before,
Really?
the bottom up or the amygdala.
Yep. Well done. The
Nailed it
amygdala.
again.
Yes.
Amygdala. Amygdala.
That's it.
Pathways.
Yeah.
Explain that one.
Okay. So the amygdala is that part of our brain that is the fight, flight, freeze, hide.
Oh, okay. Right. It's
Okay.
more instinctual.
Yes, absolutely.
Got it,
So
okay.
good example is you walk into your room, it's at night time, you haven't put the light on. As you walk through the door, in the corner of your eye, you see something flutter. Okay, now you know the feeling,
Oh, I do.
right? So the feeling is,
Someone's there.
so suddenly the body it has adrenaline running through it. Do I fight? Do I flight? Do I hide? Do I freeze? All of that is driven by that little bit of data going directly to the amygdala in our brain.
Right. Okay.
So it doesn't go via our thinking. It goes
Right.
straight to our emotions, that fight, flight, hide. So that's the bottom-up pathway, okay?
Yep.
And anxiety is driven when there are no thought processes. I just feel anxious.
Gotcha.
And generally, that anxious feeling is because in the amygdala, it remembers through emotion.
Okay.
So again, good example is you were 5, your mum and dad are taking you for a walk in the park, somebody's dog is off the leash and it comes running at you, barking and growling and
Yep.
seemingly to be really aggressive. From that point on in your amygdala, you have this emotional memory of
Yeah. I
fear
remember. Yep.
of dogs.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so that now becomes an anxiety of emotion driven because of a memory.
Right. Because
So they're the two differences.
Okay.
Thoughts,
Yep.
emotions.
Brilliant. Okay. Cool.
Cortex, amygdala.
Perfect. All right. I think I understand what's going on. So now let's nail this down a little bit further. How do we use the differences between those two pathways to help us parent?
Great. So the first thing,
Especially parenting kids with anxiety or anxious kids.
yeah. So our personalities play into our anxiety. Some personalities are more prone to be anxious than others.
Yep.
But we're all anxious.
Yes. Yeah.
And that appropriately so, because anxiety gives us as adults the opportunity to say, is this something I should be afraid of?
Yep.
Okay, so that's all right. What we need to do, though, is we need to parent in ways that don't reinforce the anxiety. In other words, it doesn't reinforce the pretend fear.
Okay. Yep. I
Okay?
gotcha. Yep.
And so we also want to parent in ways that help our children have skills to ask themselves, why am I anxious? So, as a parent, the very first thing we've got to do is we've got to be able to recognize, is this top down
Yep.
or bottom up?
Gotcha.
And you do that by watching how the anxiety in your child comes to the surface.
Right.
If it's suddenly there, so again, let's use the example of the dog. You're walking down, right, a couple of years later, and your child just stops and refuses to take another step. And you look around and you see a dog.
Yeah. Got it.
There's a good example of that's probably bottom-up anxiety. There's no conversation going on. There doesn't seem to be anything
There's
happening.
just a trigger.
Exactly,
Got it, okay.
exactly. On the other hand, your 13-year-old refuses to get out of bed in the morning, and as the conversation goes, you realise they've got a test. And I always fail physics tests.
Right. Got it.
There's a top-down anxiety. So our job as parents is to recognise which one am I dealing with. Someone made a great statement. They said, if you're trying to fix your car using a dictionary, you'll probably fail.
Yeah, I think so.
So if you try and fix top-down anxiety by using bottom-up anxiety skills, it doesn't work. Because they're two different things.
Add to it, wouldn't it?
Probably, yes. Yeah. So we've got to go, okay, which is is it top down, is it bottom up? Fantastic resource for that.
Okay.
How to rewiring your anxious brain.
Okay.
Author I don't remember.
Got it.
But just search
Google
rewire
it.
your anxious brain.
Yep.
it is brilliant in teaching us as parents what are the signs of each of those pathways.
Brilliant.
Because with the top-down pathway, the skills that we then want to teach our children are some detective skills. Like I said to you. So, Jeremiah, is it always?
Yeah.
Well, yes. Is it always? Oh, well, no. Well, can you give me an example of when it's not?
Brilliant. Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, here's an example, right? So, in the catastrophizing, which is a top-down, right? So you mean everything falls apart? Everything? Yeah, everything.
Everything.
You sure? Everything falls apart.
Yeah.
Well, what about yesterday when did everything fall apart then? Well, no. Okay, well, can you think of other times when not everything fell apart?
Gotcha.
With the bottom-up anxiety, what we're looking to do is we're looking to replace that emotional memory with a better emotional memory.
Got it. Okay, cool.
That's a little more tricky.
Right. So you want to do, with the top down, it's more about bringing rationality into
Correct.
it. And then bottom up, it's kind of
Replacing emotions.
the opposite.
Yeah.
So you want to actually get rationality out of there and bring in something to kind of trick.
Yes, because the bottom up, the amygdala deals with emotions. And so the memories are emotional memories.
Beautiful.
So we need to replace the old one with a new one. So with the example of the dog, it might be that you sit at home and you read a dog story to your 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Right? And you look at the pictures and then maybe you go for a drive in the car and you stop outside of a dog park, but you're in the car, the windows are wound up, but the child can watch the dogs playing. So it's gradually that step-by-step process of replacing that emotion with a new emotion.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, Graham, we could talk about this all
Lots.
day. There are so many things. We haven't even got to the medulla oblongata
No.
yet. You know, we'll get there one day.
Yeah.
Probably not, let's be real. But thank you so much for joining us today. Looking forward to the next time we get to sit here at this table again. And if you want to see more, go look for some more.